Hello everyone, so today we're going to be doing apple cinnamon muffins. This recipe is pretty easy, I'd say. It doesn't require too many ingredients or shit like that. Just to start off, I'm chopping some apples. I believe it's about 250 grams. I'm using like inspiration from other recipes, but it's pretty much... I changed a lot, so... Let's see here. So yep, we're doing 250 grams of apples. And then I'm just chopping them into like little small cubes, because this will really help get them cooked, mixed in, I guess. Here's me sped up chopping apples. This is a pretty easy recipe, honestly. There's not too much equipment involved either. You don't really need a stand mixer. You don't really need anything other than like a whisk, I guess. If you're wondering, these are Gala apples, I believe, and I just got them in a big box or a big bag from Aldi. Love Aldi. It is really cheap and really affordable, and those are synonyms. Yeah, I just got them in like a huge bag, and honestly, this was like, I don't even know. This was like 2 or 3 apples, I believe. And then so it's up to 250 grams, and then we're going to take a lemon and just slice that in half. And then I have this little like weird looking juicer thing that I'm just going to juice both lemons. And I did end up adding lemon zest to the apples as well. It just kind of gives them a little bit of like tartness and kick to it. So I believe this is after I zested them. Not sure why I didn't film it, but I did end up zesting them as well as juicing them. Alright, so moving on, then we're just gonna toss that lemon juice and lemon zest over the apples. This is gonna give it some acidity and also keep it from browning while we're preparing the other ingredients. So here's me also, I just wanted to flex that I finally learned how to tie my apron behind my back. Look at how nice this bow is. Alright, so next we're going to get our flour out and get a pretty large bowl. I'd say like a medium large bowl. You could probably use a smaller one than I did if you want to, but... And then also a digital scale. If you don't have a digital scale, I'll put in however many cups the grams are on the screen. But to start, we're going to do 250 grams of flour. My stuff has a tendency to get stuck, which is why I'm banging on the counter. But we're just going to sift that into there real quick. I prefer sifting it with a strainer rather than a traditional sifter, because I really hate cleaning out the traditional sifters. So I'm just going to be using a strainer. So we're going to do, yeah, about 250 grams of that, give or take. I believe I did end up using more flour in the end because it was a little bit more watery than I would have liked. So again, people say that baking's an exact science. That isn't necessarily true. I mean, it does hold true for some things, but not for everything. So easier recipes especially, it won't hurt if you put too much or too little of one thing, as long as it's not significant. Next we're going in with 2 teaspoons of this baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder. I know that that's a commonly like oh, well, why can't you just use like one or the other? They are different. So we're going to be going in with baking powder, 2 teaspoons. Preferably don't put it in 2 tablespoons. It won't go well. And I like to also sift this just because half the time I don't know how long the baking powder has been sitting in my cabinet. So to prevent clumps, I prefer sifting. And then we're also going to do I'd say about a teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt. I just measure it in my palm because I'm lazy and I don't want to wash things. Next we're going to go in with 150 grams brown sugar. Again, give or take. I'm not sure how many this would be for packed cups. I'm also just whisking it quickly before adding in the brown sugar. And brown sugar as well. So mine was packed down in the bag just a bit, which is why I kind of scooped it with smaller scoops. It looks a little bit weird when I'm doing it, but it was just to make sure that it was really like loose and not clumped together. We want to make sure that there's not too many big clumps in your batter. Otherwise it'll cook inconsistently and unevenly and it's not a fun time. So yeah, I just measured this out to roughly 150 grams. The nice thing about this recipe is that it's sweet, but it's not overly sweet. So that's pretty nice. And yeah, we're just gonna measure this out to roughly 150 grams. Again, I am using a scale, but it's, you know, if you put 148 or 152, it really isn't gonna change the recipe. So I did put the brown sugar away, but I'd recommend you don't because you're going to need it later. And then I went in with cinnamon. This was roughly 2 teaspoons, I'd say. But I kind of just eyeball it, honestly. If you don't want to add cinnamon, you don't have to, but my preference is to add it. So I did also go in with a little bit of nutmeg because I don't know. I like the little spice that it gives. It's not spicy, but the flavor it gives. And then I just, whisk to combine that and make sure it's really thoroughly mixed. And then we're going to move on to the wet ingredients after that. Alright, moving on to wet ingredients. I got a little bit of a smaller bowl for this one because you won't really need as much. And we're going to start off with, I'm using almond milk. You can pretty much use any dairy or plant alternatives. You can use regular oat, soy, cashew. I mean, it really doesn't matter much. And we're going to go in with roughly 150 milliliters of this. And then after that, we are going to, here's the kicker, we don't use butter in this recipe, we actually use olive oil. So we're going to be using just this Kirkland brand olive oil. You can pretty much use any olive oil as long as it's not too thick or thin. And so for the oil, we're actually going to go in with 125 milliliters, which does seem like a lot, especially when you're pouring it in. I was a little bit confused because it was quite a bit, but it is 125 milliliters. The olive oil, if you're worried, it really doesn't have too strong of a taste in the recipe, and I actually think it makes the end product stay moist for several days afterwards, which is really nice. And then we're going to go in with our vanilla. It's supposed to be about a teaspoon, I'd say, but this was the end of my bottle, and there was only a teaspoon left, so yeah. Again, if you want to add a little bit more or a little bit less, that's perfectly fine. We're then going to go in with 2 eggs. I did add more than 2 because my eggs are not store-bought. They are from a farm, which means they're a bit smaller and less evenly shaped for like all of them. So I did end up cracking 2 of these, and then I was the egg yolks were a little smaller than I would have liked, so I did end up adding about another half an egg yolk to the mixture. just to make sure that there was enough egg in it. So I'd say this is probably about the equivalent of like 2 large store-bought eggs, I'd say. Yeah. And then after that, we're just going to give it a really, really, really good whisk. You really want to make sure that the oil has fully incorporated into the eggs and milk. Alright, so then we're going to start slowly incorporating the liquids into the dry ingredients. So you're going to really want to take this pretty slow, just to prevent too much clumping and stuff like that. So it is going to mix a little bit weird at first, but just bear with it and make sure you're really... I'd say maybe adding in a couple tablespoons at a time, maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons at a time. Just to really make sure that it's well mixed. Yeah, I soon realized that I wouldn't be able to do this with just one hand on each bowl, so yeah. Yeah, at first it can be a little bit tedious. Yeah, just stick with it, and yeah, it should turn out. It should begin forming a dough, or not a dough, a batter. It should begin forming a batter. And yeah, I just really made sure to thoroughly mix it, but be very, very, very careful not to overmix muffin batter, because overmixing muffin batter can cause it to not rise or rise too much, or just a plethora of issues. So I then added in my 250 grams of apples. Just gave that a real quick toss, made sure that it's all evenly distributed. Alright, and then here's where I did end up adding in probably another, I'd say 25 to 30 grams of flour. Because the liquid was just, the batter was just a little bit too liquidy for my preference. It's hard to describe, but it didn't quite look right. Not in color or anything, just in viscosity. It wasn't quite as thick as most muffin recipes, so I did end up adding a bit more flour, which is perfectly fine to do if you feel like maybe it's a little bit too liquidy. And as you can see here, it kind of solidified a little bit, so it's not... I think, yeah, I went in with probably another, 15-20 here as well. I did end up adding quite a bit more flour, but the muffins they rose perfectly, and they weren't super dense either, so whatever kind of feels right. If it resembles pancake batter, you should definitely add more flour, 100%. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with muffins that don't rise. So as you can see, it kind of sticks to this whisk, and that's kind of how you know that it's a pretty good consistency. Alright, so I did preheat the oven to 350 degrees. So if you want to end up preheating your oven to 350 degrees, or I believe 180 Celsius, maybe. And then I just used this olive oil spray as well. You can use like just a cooking spray if you'd like, or you can even butter them. I just prefer this because it's easy. And then I kind of just used a paper towel to spread out the oil and kind of get any of that excess up. So I used about a 1/4 cup for each of the muffin tins. However, my muffin pan is very shallow for some reason. So you may end up, if you've, especially if you have a jumbo muffin pan, you may want to make sure that you're adding a little bit more. But yeah, so I added about a 1/4 cup to each. And then at the end, I did end up having extra batter. So I did end up doing some ramekins as well, which pretty much do the same process. But yeah, you're going to want to make sure that you fill these up. Typically when you're making muffins, you want to fill them up to about 2/3 the height of the tin. But for these ones, you're going to want to fill them pretty much to the top. I mean, obviously, make sure you leave a little bit of room for them to rise, but these ones definitely don't rise so much that you need to underfill it. So yeah, just fill it up to about the top, maybe a little bit under the top. And yeah, then you're golden. So just bang the tray on the table just to make sure that you really get the air bubbles out of it. And then what I did here was I added a small line of cinnamon to the top of all of them, just to make it look nice, you know. And then I also added a little bit of brown sugar on top. Now you can make a streusel top or like a crumble top if you'd like. That's pretty easy as well. You can just, you know, Google a recipe for it. It's so easy. But I just decided to just go with a standard brown sugar on top. And then yeah, here's the ramekins. So I just put these onto a baking tray. I put down 6. I only managed to fill 5 of them actually. And I just repeated the same process of kind of like oiling the insides of them, just to make sure that they didn't stick. See, I really liked the ones in the ramekins because you can, or what I did was, because they didn't go all the way to the top when they cooked, I put a little bit of maple syrup in it and kind of let it soak and then ate it like that with like some walnuts on top, and it was amazing. I would really recommend trying that if you do end up putting them in ramekins. Of course, you can just do that in like a bowl with the other muffins, but something about it is really, really nice. So yeah, I put about a 1/4 cup in these ones as well, maybe a little bit more. Actually, probably less than a 1/4 cup. Alright, and then once you have all of the muffin tins sorted out, then we're going to pop those into the oven, into the preheated oven, which should now be at either 350 or 180. And then these are going to cook for about 20 to 25 minutes. Depends on, I guess, your oven and your pans. But yeah, I believe I let mine cook 23 to 24 minutes. Yeah. So then once they come out, I mean, they're just going to be this beautiful golden brown color. And honestly, these are super delicious. They're super easy for, you know, snacks, pre-workout snacks, you know, get some quick carbs in, or just, you know, breakfasts and lunches and dinners. I ate them for pretty much all. They were really good. So here's a nice close-up of them. They're gorgeously cooked, and yeah. And here's me almost dropping them, so be careful about that. But yeah, after about 5 to 10 minutes sitting on the tray, you can start to remove them and allow them to cook on a wire baking mat, tray, sheet, rack, a wire rack. Yeah, these are, you know what? These are super delicious, and they just have this beautiful cross section in them. You know, I'm just gonna cut one open here, and you can see the inside. It's perfectly steamy. It's just amazing. I highly recommend these, and you know what? I think they're even better than the butter ones, making them with butter. Thanks for watching, and if you made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out any of my other videos, or make sure to look out for any of the future videos. Bye!